you realize that Trump is basically the perfect African president, you start to notice the similarities everywhere, like the level of self-regard.
I say not in a braggadocious way. I've made billions and billions of dollars. I was born with a certain intellect. God helped me by giving me a certain brain.
I bet that's the one time that God's like, I don't need the praise, it's cool. That's you, I'm cool.
I made a tremendous amount of money. I'm really rich. I have a great temperament. They love me anyway, I don't have to do this. I've done an amazing job.
What do Idi Amin, Robert Mugabe, and Donald Trump have in common? Trevor Noah drew a jaw-dropping comparison that left one of them fuming and the internet buzzing. Stick around as we unpack the eerie similarities, because the truth about Trump's playbook might just blow your mind. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
Now, is that extraordinary level of bragging presidential? Well, let's ask a man who actually was president. Idi Amin, former president and best president of Uganda.
The people like me very much. I am very popular. I am very powerful. I am the one who has got the money.
And I know this because every time I ask people if I have a good brain, they say, of course, Mr. President. Now, please let my family go. You've already killed my sister. I think you've proved your point.
Trevor Noah didn't just go for a chuckle when he spoke about Donald Trump. Oh no, he went straight for the jugular, blending humor with the kind of biting truth that leaves a mark. On an episode of The Daily Show, Trevor made a bold comparison that surprised even his loyal audience. He likened Trump to the likes of Idi Amin and Robert Mugabe, two African dictators known for their oppressive regimes and theatrical overconfidence. While some initially laughed it off as a wild stretch, the way Trevor connected the dots showed everyone it wasn't just a throwaway line. This was a vivid, calculated critique that Trump's critics couldn't get enough of.
His Excellency President for Life, Field Marshal Al-Haji, Dr. Idi Amin Dada, VC DSO, MC, Lord of all the beasts of the earth, and fishes of the seas, and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general, and Uganda in... And just to make sure everyone knew exactly how successful he was, Idi Amin insisted on always being referred to by his full title. And this is completely true. Trump is so African presidential, he's already at the level of Zimbabwe's president, Robert Mugabe, whose brutality and repressive tactics have kept him in power for 35 years.
And his supporters absolutely hated. Trevor started by calling attention to Trump's rhetoric and how it followed a strikingly familiar pattern. Donald Trump doesn't act like America's president, he acts like an African dictator, Noah said, delivering the line with his trademark half-smirk, half-side-eye. While the audience erupted into laughter, he went on to back up his jab with specifics that made the laughs a little more uneasy. What kind of specifics? Think about Trump's infamous speeches where he leaned heavily into fear and division. You might remember one such speech where he vividly described immigrants as criminals, rapists, and drug dealers, painting a picture of chaos that conveniently underscored his calls for a border wall. And let's not forget his bragging, whether it was calling himself a stable genius or reminding anyone within earshot of his supposedly unmatched wisdom. Trump rarely missed an opportunity to pat himself on the back. According to Trevor, that blend of divisiveness and self-congratulation would have been right at home in speeches by leaders like Mugabe or Amin. But the real punch landed when Trevor drew attention to Trump's strongman tactics, the way he seemed to thrive on creating enemies, both real and imagined. Noah quipped, "Trump knows how to make his followers think America is under attack, and he is the only solution. It's classic dictator energy." Then he paused, which only made the critique ring louder. At this point, the audience wasn't just laughing, they were nodding. Trevor explained how similar strategies had been used by some of the most notorious leaders in history. From threat inflation to constant self-mythologizing, the parallels weren't just funny, they were unsettling. Take a moment to think about Idi Amin, a dictator infamous for blaming nearly every problem on an imagined external threat. Trump's rhetoric around immigrants and his use of othering language fit that mold almost too perfectly. Trevor didn't pull punches here, making the observation feel less like a roast and more like a well-constructed exposé. He even brought up Trump's tendency to undermine the media, labeling any criticism as fake news. Noah slyly commented, "The media is fake if it says bad things about him, but when it praises him, oh, suddenly, it's the most credible source in the world." That line hit a little too close to home for anyone paying attention to Trump's ongoing feud with the press. What made this moment so powerful, though, was that Trevor didn't just rattle off his list of grievances, he connected them to real-world consequences. For instance, the ease with which Trump sowed doubt about democratic norms, such as calling the integrity of elections into question and encouraging a sense of mistrust in government institutions, revealed a playbook disturbingly similar to the leaders Noah compared him to. And just in case anyone thought Trevor's critiques were too harsh, he delivered them with the kind of humor that felt both disarming and cutting. Referring to Trump's over-the-top self-praise, Noah joked, "If Trump ever writes a memoir, it's probably going to be called The Art of Being Great at Everything, a memoir by the most tremendous man in the history of tremendousness." Sarcastic? Absolutely. But it also felt like a sentence that Trump might actually consider for his next book. The brilliance of Trevor's commentary lay in its layered delivery. Sure, it was funny at times, but it was also razor-sharp. By comparing Trump to these African leaders, Noah wasn't just making a farcical point, he was starting a larger conversation about spotting patterns in leadership, particularly when those patterns prioritized creating enemies and glorifying the leader over policy or progress. The audience wasn't just laughing, they were thinking. And then there's the matter of Trump's fragile public image. Trevor's takedown didn't just strike a chord with the public, it struck a nerve in Trump himself, setting the stage for an explosive reaction that could hardly have been more predictable. After all, if there's one thing Trump can't stand, it's being mocked, especially when that mockery has an uncomfortable edge of truth to it. But what exactly did Trump do once he caught wind of this comparison? Well, let's just say his reaction might have done more to prove Trevor's point than 1,000 jokes ever could. When Trevor Noah delivered his sharp critique comparing Donald Trump to African strongmen like Idi Amin and Robert Mugabe, you could almost hear Trump's blood pressure rising from wherever you were. And if there's anything we've learned from years of observing Trump, it's that he can't and won't let a criticism slide. His response didn't disappoint, although it may have proved Trevor's point more effectively than any joke ever could. Let's start with the Twitter storm, because what's a Trump reaction without Twitter chaos? Within hours of Trevor's segment making waves, Trump took to his favorite platform and unleashed a series of all-caps tweets that read more like an unhinged scream than anything close to a measured rebuttal. "The Daily Show is fake news. Trevor Noah is a loser, not funny, and racist against me. They will do anything to attack your favorite president, who has done more than any other president ever. Sad." That tweet was a roller coaster of emotion, complete with random capitalizations and exclamation points sprinkled everywhere like confetti nobody asked for. He even threw in a vague accusation of racism. Because why not, right? Honestly, it felt like every stereotype about Trump's online persona crammed into 280 characters. The irony, of course, is that his outburst only amplified Trevor Noah's comparison instead of squashing it. What really made the whole thing entertaining, beyond the obvious spectacle, was how his reaction mimicked the exact behavior Noah had pointed out. Noah had joked about Trump's obsession with his image, his love of self-praise, and his tendency to shift blame or cast himself as a victim whenever criticized. And here was Trump, responding as if he'd read Noah's playbook and decided, yup, let's do all of that right now. If Noah's critique hit Trump where it hurt, Trump's tweets were his way of screaming, "I'm not mad, you're mad," in the most mad way possible. But it wasn't just Twitter. Oh no, Trump took his fury offline too, reportedly ranting to aides about how comedians were out to get him and accusing late-night hosts of conspiring with Democrats. The idea of Trevor Noah sneaking into secret meetings with Nancy Pelosi was, frankly, as funny as the original joke. Trump even floated the idea, yet again, that late-night TV should fall under stricter FCC regulations. Imagine that. Censoring jokes you don't like. Sound familiar? It's a move straight out of the authoritarian playbook. the very same one Noah had highlighted in his segment. Trump didn't just walk into the comparison, he built himself a podium on it. Now, critics of authoritarian figures will tell you how common this sort of response is. History books are loaded with examples of leaders taking criticism and spinning it into a giant personal offense. Idi Amin, for instance, was notorious for responding to even the tiniest dissent with an overblown, self-pitying spectacle. Reporters who criticized him would be called foreign conspirators, trying to undermine his greatness, which honestly sounds a bit like Trump's rhetoric about the press. Meanwhile, Robert Mugabe famously accused his critics of being agents of imperialism whenever they called him out for corruption or undemocratic policies. Trump's all-caps tantrums may lack the eloquence of a dictator's speech, but the vibe? It's not far off. And let's not forget, in true Trump fashion, even the technical aspects of his tweet storm ended up being part of the comedy. Among the frantic punctuation and random capitalization, there were at least two noticeable typos that eagle-eyed readers immediately pounced on. Look, when you're loudly declaring yourself the greatest president ever, maybe double-check that you've spelled everything right. Predictably, this misstep gave social media users more ammunition to roast him with memes and jokes, turning the whole incident into an even bigger public relations mess. For all his outrage, Trump seemed to miss the most damaging detail. The more he lashed out, the more he reinforced the same patterns Noah had been mocking. He was divisive, he was defensive, and, crucially, he couldn't take a joke. The very fact that these traits came to the forefront as a reaction to the comparison only served to validate it. It was as if Noah had handed him a mirror, and instead of looking away, Trump furiously tried to tweet at the mirror until it apologized. And here's the kicker. In proving Trevor right, Trump also handed the comedian one of his biggest wins. Public figures know that criticism doesn't hit as hard if it doesn't create an emotional reaction. So when Trump exploded like a firecracker, Noah's segment gained even more traction. Clips of the joke went viral, memes spread, and the story extended its shelf life far beyond what a single comedy bit usually enjoys. The end result? Noah looked sharper, funnier, and more insightful, while Trump looked, well, exactly like the figure Noah had compared him to. What's most fascinating is how this whole saga reveals a larger truth. When leaders prioritize their image over handling criticism, when every joke becomes an existential threat, they make it easier to spot patterns in their behavior. And as Trevor Noah demonstrated, laughter can be one of the most effective ways to expose those patterns. Trevor Noah's comparison wasn't just a dig at Trump. It was a reminder of how dangerous leadership patterns repeat themselves. Noah's critique highlighted how tactics like fear-mongering, self-praise, and blaming enemies have been used throughout history, no matter the leader or geography. The bigger question isn't just what Trump does, but why these strategies keep working on people. Recognizing those moves is the first step to rejecting them. And sometimes, humor is the weapon we need to cut through it all. So next time a leader tries to charm you with ego and division, maybe stop and ask, is this leadership or a sales pitch?